In this video, we cover hosting concepts: domain, your server, also known as your host, and domain-based email. If you already have a WordPress installation at a host server, go to the section below where we start building out your site. So here's how websites work. This is not 100% accurate, but it's pretty close. So you enter your domain name in the browser. Your computer communicates through the internet through a service called the Whois that interrogates your domain registrar. Namecheap, GoDaddy, they're all domain registrars. This is the place that holds your domain. And your domain registrar replies with the IP address of your server or your host. And the next thing that happens is your computer goes out to the internet with a request, get me the website at IP blah blah. This connects to your server or your host at that IP address, who processes the request through the WordPress system files and database and generates the HTML that paints your website on your computer. It returns the HTML data stream to you, and voila, you have a website. So here are the takeaways. First of all, there's two entities that must work together: your domain registrar and your web host, with the exception of the local server hosting, which we'll get into momentarily. And it's important because some web hosts will also handle your domain registration, meaning that they will act as your domain registrar. But I would advise you not to do this because it'd make it difficult to move your site to a new host later. And particularly if you have multiple websites, try and separate your domain registrar from your web host. But remember in any case that your domain registrar informs the world which web host you use, and there's two primary ways to configure your domain registrar, depending on what type of hosting you use, which we'll get into in a moment as well. Now, there is a technology called local server hosting where your own computer acts as your web host. So you don't need a domain name or a domain registrar, and you don't need to be connected to the internet to view your website. And this is particularly useful if you're learning WordPress because it costs you nothing and it's fairly easy to set up and you don't have to mess with domain registrar, etc. And you can always move your site from your local server to a hosted server later as well. And finally, email hosting refers to the process of receiving and sending emails from your domain, as in you@yourdomain.com. And there's various ways of doing this, which are covered in the final video in this section.